Part 5 of How to Improve Your Bioengineering Projects, Lessons Learned from the City of Calgary Repair and Monitoring Program, is about project maintenance and monitoring. In this presentation, we'll be covering why perform maintenance, what to maintain, why monitor, what to monitor. So why maintain sites? Simply put, it's often contractually required. But why is that? For bioengineering projects especially, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Maintenance is crucial because preventing issues like desiccation and competition from weeds and invasive plants and browsing ensures that the planted vegetation can successfully be established by project completion. For the repair and monitoring program, we identified site limiting factors that hinder a site from meeting its full potential. Out of 16 possible factors, the top 3 were maintenance issues, such as issues with weeding, fencing, or irrigation, existing vegetation competition, and compacted soils. Additionally, the lowest overall repair and monitoring program ratings across the 5 components were for maintenance and BRQI. The maintenance rating reflected a consistent lack of observed maintenance and insufficient documentation of contractor activities. For the BRQI rating, the total vegetation cover was generally high outside of riprap areas. The low score stemmed from poor regeneration, low diversity, and the presence of undesirable species. The conclusion here is that improving on-the-ground maintenance, such as regular weeding and properly documenting these activities, would likely enhance both maintenance and BRQI scores. Maintenance includes removing weeds that compete with planted vegetation. Under the Weed Control Act, landowners must remove noxious and prohibited noxious weeds to protect ecosystems. We documented 19 invasive species, including 17 noxious and 2 prohibited, nodding thistle and common buckthorn. While monitoring helps identify weeds, an active removal program is essential for compliance as part of the maintenance activities. Nuisance weeds like creeping thistle and smooth perennial sow thistle were found on over 84% of sites. This indicates that weeding efforts on repair and monitoring program sites needed improvement. We recommend focusing on designs that encourage quick canopy cover, such as closer live staking or high-density techniques like brush layers, to shade out weeds and reduce maintenance. The key message from the repair and monitoring program is that a dry climate is a major factor in bioengineering design, and irrigation should be considered as part of the maintenance program. Deep cuttings were more successful due to better soil moisture access, but they can also be improved through irrigation. However, irrigation data was limited, with information from only 7 of 69 sites, and many sites no longer had active irrigation. We began measuring soil moisture in 2022, though not systematically, and found higher vegetation success where moisture was higher. Only 5% of the 11,000 plants showed moisture stress, which was heavily weighted towards container plants being more affected. Thus, better irrigation is needed on the top of bank, but we didn't find conclusive evidence whether spray or drip irrigation was more effective. We recommend irrigation for 2 to 3 years after construction to support vegetation growth based on our findings and existing literature. We observed several maintenance issues during the repair and monitoring program that should be monitored during the warranty period. Many sites had poorly installed container plants that were repaired or replaced. We also saw weeding issues and damage from weed whacking. We recommend flagging or staking each plant to guide operators, or using hand weeding. Temporary fencing is crucial for protecting vegetation from browsing or trampling, but some fences were damaged and required repair, especially those that were found in the river. Additionally, irrigation was often missing in areas where it was clearly needed for vegetation establishment. So now, why monitor? Monitoring a bioengineering site is essential to fill knowledge gaps about project performance and ensure the site is functioning as intended. Monitoring can range from detailed monthly assessments to informal annual visits, but observations should always be documented and shared. For example, as a result of the monitoring program, we identified 7 failure sites based on vegetation survival below 25% or structural issues. Of these, 5 failed to meet survival targets and 2 failed structurally. Common failure factors included inappropriate structure types, late installation of cuttings, improper live staking, and anaerobic soils. Monitoring helps us identify these issues and improve future designs. Monitoring for the repair and monitoring program included both desktop and field assessments. The desktop assessment reviewed project background information such as reports, designs, and maintenance records. The field assessment had 3 components. Firstly, the structure assessment, where site performance, bank stability, and material condition were evaluated using visual observations, probing, surveys, and photos. Secondly, the vegetation assessment, where plant survival and growth were measured using transects, quadrats, and survival assessments. And lastly, the failure assessment that was conducted if a site was degraded or if woody vegetation survival was under 25%. During each site assessment, we documented conditions like high water marks, erosion, soil characteristics, soil moisture, compaction, and any damage from humans or animals. We also recorded survey data on existing and planted vegetation, structure dimensions, and material type and condition. Examples of observations include erosion, structural failure, and material condition, as shown in the photos. For vegetation monitoring in the repair and monitoring program, we assessed 7 parameters: survivorship, leader growth, shoot length, diameter, canopy cover, vigor, and species diversity. Each of these parameters was important for assessing vegetation health and growth, with some parameters acting as surrogates for root development, which is essential for riverbank stabilization. Photo monitoring is a simple but effective tool to show the progression and change over time of a site, and was key for the field assessments. Guidelines for photo monitoring include including a skyline or permanent landscape feature in the background as a benchmark, using a tripod or a fixed object to provide a consistent height for the photographs, including an item for a sense of scale, a survey rod or reference pole are good options, and stamping the photos with key georeferencing information like geographic coordinates, date, and time. I've shown this table a few times during these presentations, but this represents the data that can be collected as part of the monitoring efforts, with data for various species for year 1, year 3, and year 5 or older age classes. The data can also be used as a reference to compare establishment at a new site as well. So for example, one use of the vegetation data is post-construction monitoring to track species growth. For example, the shoot length data for balsam poplar cuttings in year 1 and year 3 is shown here. Comparing a new site's data with the repair and monitoring program data, as shown in the white cells, you can see that in year 1, the shoot length is above the 75th percentile, indicating good establishment. However, by year 3, it drops to the 25th percentile, suggesting the need for mitigation, like more irrigation or weeding, possibly. Bioengineering aims to kickstart ecological processes, and at sites with successful vegetation establishment, we saw these processes in action. In areas with full canopy closure, invasive weeds were reduced due to shading. Roots were observed growing through structures and binding soils, enhancing erosion resistance and bank stability. Unplanted areas were colonized by willow suckering, and spruce saplings were naturally recruited from surrounding communities, signaling that ecological processes are driving long-term bank stabilization at these locations. The duration of maintenance and monitoring depends on the project objectives. Generally, maintenance should last at least 3 years to ensure vegetation establishment. There's often a large improvement between years 2 and 3 when projects are well maintained. For regulatory compliance, monitoring may last 5 or maybe 10 years, depending on what is being assessed for impact. My personal suggestion is to continue visiting sites to observe their progress over the course of as many years as possible. So in summary, repair and monitoring program results show that improvements are needed during maintenance, and maintenance activities such as weeding, fence repair, and irrigation are critical for project success. Monitoring ensures a project meets its goals and can be as simple as annual site visits if well documented and shared with the appropriate people. Repair and monitoring program data helps assess the success of other sites. And finally, maintenance should last at least 3 years, but monitoring duration depends on project goals. Now some time for questions and discussion.